Lots to talk about this morning. Love you to get in touch. Here are all the ways to talk to us on BBC Radio Kent.
Julia George.
BBC Radio Kent.
It's all here.
I'd also like to hear from you if you just smoke normal cigarettes, if you've never been tempted to switch over, if you like smoking, you have no intention of quitting, and e-cigarettes just hold no attraction for you because you like the real thing. Mike Cameron joins us. Mike actually sells e-cigarettes. He runs a company called SMOKO. Mike, nice to have you with us. Good morning to you.
Julia, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How did you get into it then?
I was running another retail business at the time, and this is about 7 years ago, and I saw another brand who was selling e-cigarettes in a shopping mall, and being an ex-smoker myself, I thought, wow, this is really quite an interesting business opportunity, because you've got a product that essentially is going to help people, it's going to save them money, and generally they're going to feel better about themselves.
Okay, so how did you manage to give up smoking? Did you just go cold turkey? What was your process?
No. I used e-cigarettes. I'd quit, 3 or 4 times in the past, and would always jump back onto the habit of smoking. And then, once we started using this product, there's absolutely no reason why you'd ever smoke again. Okay. A normal cigarette.
So tell me a little bit about the difference between smoke as somebody who's smoked real cigarettes and who's vaped. Tell me a little bit about the two experiences.
Okay, so cigarettes, we all know how bad they are for our health. It's been widely known for almost 40 years, and the governments are trying everything they can to reduce the number of people who are smoking traditional cigarettes, from increasing the taxes, raising the prices, introducing the smoking bans in public places. And now this year you've had the plain packaging coming out due to the European laws. So they're trying everything in their power to make cigarettes as unattractive as possible. And that's helped a little bit along the way. Smoking rates have declined over the last couple of decades, whereas normal cigarettes have 4,000 chemicals and 50 things that we know cause cancer. E-cigarettes essentially only have 4 ingredients. Public Health England recently came out with something about a year and a half ago saying that e-cigarettes are at least 95% less harmful than normal cigarettes.
But really what I wanted you to do is describe to me what the two experiences are like, literally as a user.
Sorry.
No, not at all. That was all very interesting. But it's many, many, many years since I smoked cigarettes, but I think I could probably quite well describe it still. It's quite a visceral experience.
Yes.
But what would you say the actual use of them, how would you describe it as a user?
They are almost the exact same sensation. So an e-cigarette will vaporize an e-liquid, so it feels like smoke hitting the back of your throat. There's still nicotine in it, and there's flavor as well. So we have ranges of 5 or 6 different tobacco flavors, and then you get into other non-tobacco flavors as well. But the feeling of it when you inhale is pretty much the same. You get the same nicotine hit, and when you exhale, there is a bit of a vapor that comes out as well. So you get the hand-to-mouth, you get your nicotine cravings satisfied. So it's as close as you possibly can get without obviously all the bad stuff in it.
What is different about it, though? I mean, literally the using of it, not what's in it. What is it? If I were to pick up an e-cigarette and toke on it, like I would have done a cigarette many, many years ago, I keep emphasising that, don't I? Many years ago. What would be the differences? I hear the similarities. What are the differences?
Yeah, so the differences are with e-cigarettes, you don't need a lighter or matches, so you don't have to worry about that. There's no smell like you have with cigarettes, so you don't have that stale sort of ashtray kind of odor that sticks on your clothes and your hair and your breath and all that kind of stuff.
But there is a taste but not a smell. That's interesting.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's no secondhand smoke either. So for those people that are around you, it's nowhere near as harmful, if harmful at all, to those around you compared to cigarettes.
What is in the vapor that you breathe out when you're smoking, vaping?
Yeah, the 4 main ingredients. You have propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin, and those are ingredients that are used in candy, gum, soft drinks, cake mixes, ice cream, all the things we eat every single day. Then you have different food flavorings, and then you also have the nicotine. And that's essentially the 4 core ingredients within an e-cigarette.
So how do we know what the impact of the vapor is on the non-smoker?
So there's been lots of research that has looked at the toxicology of someone who's using a e-cigarette versus when they were smoking, and those levels are dramatically different, worlds apart. So someone using an e-cigarette has almost zero levels of toxicity versus someone who's smoking cigarettes. There's also been studies that have shown in terms of the vapor that comes out of an e-cigarette versus a cigarette. And what I should probably predicate it at the start, we believe that the best thing to possibly do if you smoke cigarettes is to quit. And if you can't quit, then find something that's as least harmful as possible in your body until you can kick the nicotine habit.
Do you think that
really
you can kick a nicotine habit if you keep taking nicotine, which is what e-cigarettes are doing? They're another vehicle to put nicotine into your body, aren't they?
They are, and with any form of quit smoking, whether you're going cold turkey, whether you are using patches, gum, whatever, there's still an element of willpower that's in behind that. And you need to make a conscious decision to start cutting down the amount of nicotine that's in your product that you're using. So we have 5 different levels of nicotine in the majority of our e-cigarettes, so people can cut down.
But do they, though? Crucially, do you notice
Some
your
people
repeat
do.
customers cutting down or not?
Yeah, some people do. We do have a lot of customers who are happy to continue using this instead of smoking, and that's their decision. And we obviously tell them, look, these are designed to quit smoking. They said, no, we're happy using this instead of smoking cigarettes. So they still want to have that same sensation in their life. They want to have the nicotine, but they'd like to do it in a cleaner way. So that's the choice that they've made. But again, with anything, you need that willpower to say, I want to give up nicotine or vaping or cigarettes or eating chocolate or sugar or, whatever it may be. So,
have you ever come across anybody who has just taken up vaping?
We have, because we have a shop in Tunbridge Wells, so we get people coming in, people who smoke predominantly, but every once in a while we get someone who doesn't smoke and never has. And we always ask the question, so, why do you want to do this? And some of the responses is quite interesting. All my friends are vaping now. It's like, okay, so have you smoked? No. Well, why would you want to use this? And we actually don't sell to them, because once someone's using a nicotine product, then, again, you have to start going through that whole how do you start quitting nicotine. So there's no point introducing a foreign and addictive chemical like nicotine into your system if you've never done it. So,
Do you think that, in the end, this will be what everybody does? Will we move to a world where any consumption of nicotine is only through e-cigarettes? Or do you think we will always have cigarettes?
In Western countries, the growth of e-cigarettes and smoking alternative products or next-generation products is predicted to outperform the use of traditional tobacco within the next 7 years. So within the next, I would say, 15 to 20 years, you won't see tobacco in many Western countries whatsoever. Now, that's not necessarily the case in other countries, especially into Asia or Africa, where big tobacco companies are now focusing their advertising and marketing dollars there because there's no regulation or restrictions. So in those markets, you're getting a huge uptake in cigarettes and consumption, and they're cheap and they're widely available and that sort of thing. Sort of like they used to be in North America or in the UK 50, 60 years ago. So at some stage in Western civilization, Western countries, absolutely, cigarettes won't exist anymore, I would say, within the next 15 years.
Final quick thought. Do you welcome the report by the inquiry by MPs? Is it needed?
This is a very, very long and complicated question because there are regulations that have come into place over the last 2 years with electronic cigarettes across the Europe, and it's called the European Tobacco Product Directive, or the TPD. Now, the TPD was meant to regulate the ingredients that you actually put in your e-liquids. It was meant to regulate the hardware that you use. It was meant to restrict the size of the tanks, the size of the bottles of e-liquids, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And many companies have gone through the TPD and done it by the letter, by the T, crossed the T's and dotted the I's, as we have. But the industry has changed over the last 3 or 4 years, where you have smaller devices that look like a cigarette. So they're called cigalikes, where you have the pre-filled cartridge that you generally buy from the retailer or the manufacturer. And then you have these other devices that are quite large, or like 2, 3, 4 times as big as your mobile phone, and they produce lots of vapor, and they're designed to allow people to tweak and modify and change and what have you. With those devices, we actually don't sell because we don't believe they fall within the regulations that have been set up, nor do they have the best interest of the consumer in hand.
Do you need an inquiry then if there are products on the market that are questionable?
Because I don't think that all e-cigarettes are created equally. And that's, people just say e-cigarettes, and that includes everything from the small pre-filled devices all the way up to these devices that can go up to 250 watts of power. You can modify them, you can change them, you can increase all the different functions and features. An e-cig should be, it's like a car. A car drives from A to B. You don't need a Ferrari or a Lamborghini to drive.
But all of which, and I'm sorry to close it down, but the time's against us, but all of which, bearing in mind, does that mean it's a yes to this inquiry is a good thing because of that?
I think more inquiry in terms of the hardware is a good thing.
Okay.
But it also, I don't believe, I've read the article, I don't believe that e-cigarettes should be offered on the NHS. I don't think that should be a cost onto the rest of society and taxpayers, because right now you can't get cigarettes on the NHS on prescription to feed your nicotine habit, so why should you have e-cigarettes? But there is so much evidence, medical evidence and medical research saying that e-cigarettes are so much better than smoking cigarettes, and you need to compare the apples to apples, cigarettes versus e-cigarettes.
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Cameron, who runs SMOKO, a Kent business selling e-cigarettes. Let's have a really quick chat with Jill.